It was supposed to be a fun, laid-back pool party with friends, good food, and plenty of laughs. But one phone call changed everything. Picture this. You're hosting a summer bash, the music's playing, everyone's having a blast. And then suddenly, the sirens. That's exactly what happened when a neighbor, let's just say, had a little too much to say about my gathering. She called 911, claiming that we were disrupting the peace. What she didn't know. Half of the guests weren't just regular people. They were judges, prosecutors, and even some high-ranking officials. Imagine the look on her face when the authorities arrived, only to realize they were about to meet a few people who knew exactly how to handle a situation like this. But it wasn't over yet. The more the evening unfolded, the more it became clear that this wasn't just about noise or a complaint. There was something deeper at play here, and I was about to find out just how far things could escalate when you nix a Karen with a room full of legal minds. So what happened next? Did she back down, or did things take an unexpected turn? Stick around to find out. As the sirens blared and the flashing lights filled the street, my heart sank. I wasn't sure if this was a misunderstanding, or if my neighbor, let's call her Karen, was just being dramatic. I mean, it wasn't even that late. People were enjoying themselves, but we weren't exactly throwing a rave. The music was at a reasonable volume, and we had made sure to keep things respectful. But Karen didn't see it that way. Apparently, she had been watching from her window all night, waiting for something to report. When the officers showed up, they were polite, but you could tell they weren't expecting anything crazy. At first, they didn't even seem too concerned about the noise. That's when one of my guests, a judge from the local court, stepped up and introduced herself. She explained that the situation was blown out of proportion, and that she'd be happy to mediate if things got out of hand. Karen's face shifted from anger to confusion. I could see she wasn't ready for this. And then, just as things started to settle, another guest, a prosecutor, spoke up, adding a little more weight to the conversation. That's when I knew this wasn't just about noise anymore. It was turning into something bigger. But what was Karen really after? Was this about more than just a pool party? The tension was only starting to build. As the conversation between Karen and the officers continued, the atmosphere felt like it was shifting from awkward to charged. I stood off to the side, watching, trying to figure out where this was going. One of the officers casually asked her what her specific complaint was, and Karen, now visibly flustered, pointed to the noise, the rowdy behavior, and how she felt we were disturbing the peace in the neighborhood. It seemed so trivial, so petty, but Karen wasn't letting up. She kept repeating how this was an ongoing problem, as if our quiet pool party was somehow a threat to the entire block. It was when another guest, a defense attorney, casually asked if Karen had any legal grounds for her complaint that things really took a turn. Karen hesitated, then insisted she had every right to call the cops if she felt threatened. The officers, who had been listening carefully, exchanged a glance, as if they were beginning to wonder if this was more than just a noise complaint. A few more guests, all familiar with the law in one way or another, subtly chimed in, not wanting to escalate things, but clearly uncomfortable with how the conversation was going. But then it hit me. Was Karen actually trying to provoke a situation? Was this about more than just a noise complaint? Could it be that she was using this moment as an opportunity to dig into some old grudge, or worse, trying to create a bigger problem for me and my friends? I couldn't shake the feeling that we were walking into something dangerous, like she was angling for a confrontation, hoping someone would say the wrong thing. And just when I thought the night might start to calm down, Karen turned to me with an icy glare, like she had something more to say, something I wasn't prepared for. Karen's icy glare seemed to freeze the air between us, and I could feel the tension in the group rise. Everyone was quiet now, the laughter and music forgotten. Even the officers had grown more serious, sensing that something deeper was at play. Karen stepped closer, her voice low but pointed. "You think you can just throw parties like this without consequences? You think the law is on your side?" She looked directly at me, a smirk creeping onto her face. It was almost like she was daring me to make a mistake. I glanced around at my friends, trying to gauge how they were reacting. The judge was standing with her arms crossed, watching Karen carefully, while the prosecutor had his phone out, quietly taking notes. Everyone else was silent, tense. It was clear that no one was backing down, but I couldn't help but feel the weight of the moment. Karen turned to the officers, suddenly demanding they give me a citation, as if it were already decided. The cops hesitated, exchanging glances again, but they hadn't said anything yet. There was this long, uncomfortable pause, and I realized that, no matter how polite or calm we were, Karen wasn't going to let this go. She was looking for more than a simple ticket. She was out for something bigger, something personal. I started to wonder if this was a vendetta of hers, a chance for her to prove she had control over something, anything. And then, just when the air seemed to be thick with uncertainty, Karen did something I wasn't expecting. She pulled out her phone and began recording. My heart skipped a beat. What was she planning to do with that footage? Was she about to escalate things in a way I wasn't prepared for? The room went silent again, as everyone waited for what would happen next. And that's when I realized this wasn't just about a complaint anymore. It was about power, control, and the lengths people would go to settle a score. As Karen started recording, the air grew even heavier, and I could see her eyes gleaming with a sense of victory. She knew this was her moment, but the more I watched her, the more I realized something wasn't right. My stomach churned. I had no idea where she was going with this, but I had a sinking feeling that it wasn't going to be good. Just as I was about to ask her to stop, the unexpected happened. A sudden voice cut through the tension. It was one of the other guests, a quiet woman who had been standing off to the side most of the night. She stepped forward, her tone calm but firm. "Karen," she said, "this isn't how you want to play this." Everyone turned to look at her, surprised by her sudden intervention. The woman had been a low-key presence until now, but there was something about her that made the rest of the group stop and listen. Karen's smirk faltered as she looked at the woman, clearly not expecting a challenge. "And who are you supposed to be?" she snapped. The woman didn't flinch. Instead, she calmly introduced herself as an attorney specializing in civil rights and said that she had been monitoring the situation closely. The air shifted again. This wasn't just about a noise complaint anymore. I could feel my pulse racing as the realization hit. Karen had picked the wrong crowd to mess with. But just when it seemed like Karen might back off, something even stranger happened. The woman who had spoken up pulled out her own phone. "I've been recording too," she said coolly, "and I'm documenting this for the record." The officers exchanged uncertain looks. They'd been expecting a simple resolution to a noisy neighbor complaint, but now it was escalating fast. I could feel the weight of the situation. This wasn't just about a party anymore. There were legal implications, power plays, and something beneath the surface that none of us could see yet. And then, as if on cue, Karen made a move I wasn't ready for. She turned to the officer closest to her, pointing directly at me, accusing me of harassment. My mind raced. How could she twist it like that? What was her endgame? Karen's accusation hit me like a punch to the gut. Harassment? I repeated, barely believing the words that had just left her mouth. The room went still, and for a second, I couldn't even breathe. What was she trying to do here? The officers looked at me, then back at Karen, clearly trying to make sense of the situation. One of them asked her to explain, but she only doubled down, claiming I had somehow made her feel threatened during the entire party. That's when the woman, the civil rights attorney, stepped in. She was calm, but there was a fire in her voice now. "If you're accusing him of harassment, you'll need to back it up with some evidence," she said. "And I'll remind you, Karen, that recording someone without consent is a legally gray area at best." The officer nodded, as if he was starting to understand that this wasn't just a typical noise complaint. It was the final push we needed. The prosecutor, who had been quietly observing the whole time, chimed in too. "If you're going to accuse someone of something this serious, there better be more than just a hunch or a petty grievance." Karen hesitated, and in that split second, I could see the cracks in her confidence. Her whole facade was crumbling, and I felt a small sense of relief. Just as the officers began to make it clear that there was no case to pursue, Karen pulled her final card. She made a phone call. It wasn't to the police, though. She called someone I didn't recognize, but it was clear from her frantic whispers that she was trying to escalate the situation once again. What she didn't know, however, was that one of my guests, the prosecutor, was already on the phone with Internal Affairs, having heard her mention a potential retaliation attempt earlier. The officers exchanged a knowing look, and within moments, the situation took a sudden shift. "Ma'am," one officer said, his voice cold, "we've been informed that your conduct tonight has been less than civil. You're under investigation for abuse of emergency services, and will need to take your statement." The shock on Karen's face was almost palpable as she tried to defend herself, but the damage had been done. As she was escorted away, I felt a strange sense of both relief and disbelief. I turned to my guests, each one of them processing the surreal turn of events in their own way. The attorney gave me a reassuring nod, and the judge and prosecutor exchanged quiet words, both of them visibly relieved that the situation was finally diffused.